Welcome back to Whispers in the Dark. Tonight, we are going somewhere bright, colorful, and wrong. We are returning to the world of the magical quest, starring Mickey Mouse, but not as you remember it. Not the smiling box art, not the cheerful music, not the safe little adventure where a hero tumbles into a fantasy kingdom and saves his dog from a villain in a castle. No. Tonight, the curtain rises on the version that was never meant to be played. The version whispered about by children who left their Super Nintendo on too long after midnight. The version where the colors bled, the music slowed, and Mickey Mouse stopped smiling like a friend. So dim the lights, keep your hands away from the screen, and listen closely. Because once Mickey hears you breathing, he knows you are there. It began in the park beneath a sky so blue, it looked painted by a careful hand. The grass rolled in soft green waves, flowers nodded in the breeze, white clouds hung like cotton over the trees, and somewhere nearby, a little brook ran clear and cold over polished stones. It was a place built for laughter, the kind of place where nothing could ever rot, where nothing could ever scream, where the sun seemed nailed to the perfect hour of afternoon. Mickey Mouse stood in the center of the field, small black ears shining in the warm light, red shorts bright as fresh cherries, white gloves clean and round. His smile was wide, as always. Too wide, some would have said, if they had been looking closely. Donald Duck waddled near the edge of the grass, squinting at the ball in Mickey's hands. He wore his blue sailor shirt and cap, and he tapped one webbed foot impatiently. "Come on, Mickey," Donald said. "Throw it already." Goofy leaned against a tree with that loose, good-natured posture of his. Tall and lanky, green hat tilted back, vest hanging over his narrow shoulders. He laughed in his slow, warm way. "Don't rush him, Donald. Mickey's just making sure Pluto's ready." Pluto was ready. He always was. The yellow dog crouched low, tail wagging so hard his whole body trembled. His ears hung long and soft beside his face. His tongue lolled out. His eyes were fixed on the ball with innocent devotion. Mickey looked down at him. For a moment, the park was still. Donald stopped tapping his foot. Goofy's smile faltered. Pluto's tail slowed. Mickey's gloved fingers tightened around the ball. No one knew, not then, that something had been changing inside Mickey. It had not happened all at once. It had crept in like damp beneath a door. It came in quiet moments, when the clubhouse lights went out, when laughter ended and no one was watching. A whisper behind his eyes, a dark itch beneath his smile, a hunger that wore his voice and learned how to sound cheerful. He had begun hearing music where there was none. A carnival tune, warped and distant, playing under the world. Sometimes he heard it inside mirrors, sometimes from the bottom of wells, sometimes from Pluto's sleeping mouth, as if the dog were dreaming of a place Mickey had already visited, the place beyond the cliff, the place ruled by Emperor Pete, the place that did not want heroes. It wanted masks. Mickey lifted the ball, ready Steady, boy, Pluto barked. Mickey threw. The ball sailed high, far higher than anyone expected, too high for a friendly game of catch. It rose into the sun and became a black dot. Pluto sprang after it, barking with joy, bounding across the grass toward the distant trees. "Hey," Donald shouted. "Mickey, that was too far." Mickey did not answer. The ball vanished beyond the tree line. Pluto disappeared after it. Goofy pushed away from the tree, suddenly uneasy. "I'll go get him." He ran after Pluto, long legs stumbling through the grass. Donald looked at Mickey. "What's the big idea?" Mickey turned slowly. His face was the same as always, round and bright, his smile fixed in place, but his eyes looked deeper than they should have. They looked like black holes cut into a painted face. "Gosh," Mickey said softly, "I guess I don't know my own strength." Donald frowned. "That ain't funny." From the woods came Pluto's bark, then Goofy's voice, then silence. Not the silence of distance, not the silence of someone walking out of earshot. A full silence, sudden and heavy. Donald's feathers rose along his neck. "Goofy," he called. The trees did not answer. Mickey turned toward the woods. "Come on, Donald," he said. "We'd better find them." Donald hesitated. That was the first moment he felt it, the first true tremor of dread. Mickey's voice was cheerful, but it had a second voice beneath it. Something dry, something old. It sounded like a mouth speaking from inside a wall. But Donald followed. Of course he did. They were friends. That was how the bad thing always began. They entered the woods together. At first, the forest seemed normal. Sunlight flickered through leaves. Birds hopped among branches. The path twisted between roots and ferns. But with every step, the colors grew brighter, too bright, until the flowers looked wet with paint and the mushrooms shone like polished organs. The shadows thickened under the trees. The air smelled sweet, then sour, then sweet again, like fruit rotting under sugar. Donald kept close behind Mickey. "Mickey," he muttered, "I don't like this." "Don't be scared, pal." "I'm not scared." "That's good." A giggle fluttered from somewhere ahead. Donald froze. Goofy. No answer. They found the ball first. It sat in the middle of the path, perfectly clean, though the dirt around it was churned with claw marks. Pluto's paw prints circled it, then became frantic, then vanished at the edge of a cliff. The cliff had not been there before. It cut through the forest like a wound. The ground simply ended, dropping into a valley filled with blue mist. Far below, shapes moved in the fog. Towers, trees, something like a castle, black against the horizon. Donald peered over the edge. Pluto. A bark echoed from below. It sounded like Pluto, but stretched thin and distant, as if pulled through a long metal pipe. Mickey stepped closer to the edge. Donald grabbed his arm, careful. Mickey looked down. The mist below began to swirl. A face formed in it, huge and smiling. Not Pete's face, Not yet. Something older. Something wearing Pete's shape badly, with heavy cheeks, a pointed crown, and eyes that burned like coals behind slits of shadow. Mickey's smile widened. Donald did not see that. He was staring at the face in the mist. A voice rolled up from below, deep and cruel. "Come along, little mouse. Your dog is waiting." Donald stumbled back. Who was that? Mickey whispered, "Emperor Pete." "You know him." Mickey turned, and for just one instant, Donald saw something move under Mickey's skin, something pressing outward from behind the eyes. Then the ground broke. Donald screamed as the cliff crumbled beneath them. Trees tilted. Dirt poured into the abyss. Mickey fell without flailing. Donald twisted through the air, beating his arms uselessly, shrieking as the blue mist swallowed him. They fell into the magical land. But it was not magical anymore. Or maybe it had always been this way, beneath the music. Mickey woke first on a bed of enormous leaves in the treetops. The leaves were slick and veined, each one broad enough to hold a body. Above him rose trees so tall their crowns disappeared into green darkness. Vines hung like ropes. Giant tomatoes rolled along wooden paths, red and swollen, their skins poolsing as if something inside them breathed. Far below, water moved black and slow. The air was humid. It smelled of sap, mud, and old blood. Donald lay nearby, groaning. His sailor cap was gone. Mud clung to his feathers. "Mickey," he said, sitting up. "Where are we?" Mickey stood and brushed himself off. His gloves were stained green from the leaves. "I think we're in Pete's kingdom." Donald swallowed. "Then we find Pluto and Goofy and get out." "Yes," Mickey said, "we find them." From above, something chittered. Donald looked up. Small creatures clung to the branches. They were shaped like cheerful forest animals from far away, with round bodies and little faces, but their eyes were empty. Their mouths opened too wide, showing rows of needle teeth. They wore tiny smiles painted in red across their cheeks. One dropped. It landed on Donald's shoulder and bit into him. Donald shrieked, beating at it. Its teeth sank through feathers into flesh. Mickey watched for a second too long, fascinated by the way Donald's white feathers turned red at the roots. Donald slammed the creature against a tree. It burst like a rotten fruit, splattering dark sap across the bark. "What is wrong with this place?" Donald gasped. Mickey picked up a wooden block from the path. His gloved hands curled around it. More creatures dropped from the leaves. Mickey threw the block. It crushed one against a trunk. Its limbs twitched. Its painted smile split open and leaked black fluid. Donald stared at Mickey. Mickey laughed. Not loudly, not even cruelly. Just a soft, delighted laugh, like a child discovering a new game. Donald stepped back. "Mickey." Mickey blinked, and the laugh stopped. "Come on," he said. "Pluto's waiting." They pushed deeper into the treetops. The platforms wound upward through the trees. Wooden bridges creaked beneath them. Vines twitched when touched. The giant tomatoes rolled by in predictable paths, cheerful red things bouncing and wobbling. But when one split against a wall, Donald saw what was inside. Bones, tiny bones, bird bones, mouse bones, finger bones. Some still wore rings. Donald was trembling by then. Mickey moved with strange confidence. He leapt from branch to branch as if he had done this before. When creatures attacked, he crushed them, threw them, stomped them flat. The sound of impact changed him. With every crack, every wet pop, his smile sharpened. At a hollow in the trunk of a colossal tree, they found the old wizard. He was smaller than Donald expected, a bent figure in a blue robe, with a long beard that dragged across the floor like dusty cobweb. His eyes were hidden beneath a pointed hat. Candles burned around him, each flame blue, each wick made from a curled black hair. "Ah," the old wizard said, "the mouse has come." Donald hurried forward. "You know where Pluto is?" And Goofy. The wizard did not look at Donald. He looked only at Mickey. "Your dog was taken by Emperor Pete. Your friend followed and was taken too. Pete waits in his castle, beyond forest, fire, mountain, and storm. He believes he has stolen what belongs to you." Mickey's voice was low. "What belongs to me?" The wizard smiled sadly. "Loyalty, innocence, the last warm thing tied to your heart." Donald frowned. "What does that mean?" The wizard lifted a bundle from the shadows. A magician's costume, a turban, a robe, and a strange wand that hummed with hidden energy. "This world wears costumes," said the wizard. "Put one on, and it will give you power. But every costume asks for something in return." Mickey reached for it. Donald grabbed his wrist. "Wait, what does it ask?" The old wizard looked toward Donald at last. His eyes were gone. In their place were 2 pinpricks of white fire. "It asks to be worn by whatever is strongest inside him." Donald whispered, "Mickey, maybe we shouldn't." Mickey pulled free. The magician's robe slipped over him like a living thing. The room darkened. His red shorts disappeared beneath the blue fabric. The turban settled on his head. The wand rested in his hand. For a moment, Mickey stood silent, eyes lowered. Then he raised the wand. A bolt of magic shot across the room and struck the wall. Bark peeled away. The tree screamed. Donald covered his ears. Mickey watched the wounded tree shudder. The old wizard's beard stirred, although there was no wind. "Careful, Mickey Mouse," he whispered. "Magic reveals more than it creates." Mickey turned to him. "Then reveal the way." The wizard pointed east with one long finger. The dark forest. They left the treetops behind, though Donald felt the trees watching them go. On the path between worlds, he tried to speak to Mickey several times, but the words died in his throat. Mickey walked ahead, magician's robe whispering around his ankles, wand tapping the stones. His ears were round and perfect against the bruised sky. The dark forest began with silence. No birds, no insects, no wind. The trees were black and leafless, their branches curled like claws. The ground sank underfoot, soft with layers of dead leaves that smelled of damp graves. Pale mushrooms grew in circles, glowing faintly. Between the trunks, distant lanterns flickered, always just far enough away to be mistaken for shelter. Donald stayed close. "Goofy," he called once. Something answered in Goofy's voice. "Gosh." Donald spun. A shape moved between the trees, tall and thin. "Goofy," Donald cried, and ran toward it. Mickey did not call after him. Donald pushed through branches that scratched his face and tore at his feathers. The shape stood in a clearing, back turned, green hat drooping. Donald slowed. "Goofy." The figure turned. It was not Goofy. It was a hollow thing built from bark and rope and pieces of stolen clothing. Goofy's hat sat on its wooden head. His vest had been stretched over a rib cage of branches. Its mouth was a vertical split full of splinters. It spoke with Goofy's voice. "Donald, why'd you leave me?" Donald screamed as its arms unfolded. A flash of blue light cut through the clearing. The creature burst apart in a spray of bark, rope, and red meat hidden inside the wood. Donald fell backward, shaking. Mickey stood at the edge of the clearing, wand raised. Donald crawled away from the remains. That thing had Goofy's hat. "Yes," Mickey said. "Where is he?" "Farther in." "How do you know?" Mickey smiled. Donald began to understand then that Mickey was not searching. He was following a memory. They found Goofy suspended above a swamp. He hung from vines wrapped around his wrists and ankles. His long body stretched in an awful parody of his usual loose posture. His hat was missing. His eyes fluttered open when Donald called his name. "Donald," he groaned. "Mickey." Mickey stepped forward. The swamp beneath Goofy bubbled. Shapes moved under the surface. Wide mouths, blind eyes, little white hands reaching up through the mud. Donald slashed at the vines with a broken branch. "Hold on, Goofy." Goofy tried to smile, but his lips trembled. "I followed Pluto. Then Pete's soldiers got me. They kept asking where Mickey was." Mickey's ears twitched. Donald saw it. Not fear, not concern. Recognition. The vines tightened around Goofy. He cried out. "Mickey," Donald shouted. "Help him." Mickey lifted the wand. For a terrible second, Donald thought Mickey would aim at Goofy. Instead, he blasted the vines. Goofy fell. Donald caught part of him, and they both tumbled into the mud at the swamp's edge. The blind things beneath the surface surged toward them. Mickey fired again and again, blue bolts tearing through the mud, boiling the water, splitting the creatures into steaming fragments. The smell was unbearable. Goofy dragged himself onto solid ground. Donald helped him up. Mickey lowered the wand, breathing hard. Blue light still danced around his fingers. Goofy looked at him with gratitude. "Thanks, Mickey. I knew you'd save me." Mickey stared at him. Then he said very softly. Would you still say that if you knew what I threw? Donald froze. Goofy blinked. Huh. The ball, Mickey said. Would you still thank me? The forest seemed to lean closer. Donald whispered, Mickey, don't. Mickey's smile returned. Never mind. They moved on together, but the friendship between them had changed. It was still there, stretched like skin over a wound, but something dark pressed beneath it. Donald kept glancing at Mickey's hands. Goofy limped and tried to make jokes, but each one fell flat into the silence. By the time they reached the end of the dark forest, the trees were full of hanging cages. Some held bones, some held costumes, some held small, sobbing shapes that turned away when Mickey passed. The old wizard waited beside a dead fountain. Donald recoiled. How did you get here? The wizard ignored him. He held out the second costume. A firefighter suit, red helmet, heavy coat, a hose coiled like a sleeping serpent. The fire grotto lies ahead, said the wizard. Flames that eat memories, smoke that shows the truth. Wear this, and water will obey you. Goofy rubbed his sore wrists. That sounds handy. Donald stared at the hose. It moved slightly, as if breathing. What does this one ask? Donald said. The wizard's blind eyes fixed on Mickey. It asks what he wants to put out. Mickey removed the magician's robe. For a moment, he stood in his familiar clothes again, looking small and almost normal. Then he put on the firefighter costume. The helmet settled over his head. The hose lifted in his hands. Somewhere deep beneath them, a bell began to ring. The fire grotto was a cavern of red stone and black ash. Rivers of lava crawled through cracks in the floor. Smoke gathered near the ceiling in thick rolling clouds, but instead of rising, it sometimes dipped low and formed faces. Donald saw himself in one cloud, old and skeletal, eyes pecked out. Goofy saw his own body folded into impossible angles. Mickey saw nothing, or if he did not react. The heat made every breath painful. They crossed narrow ledges, while fire dripped from stalactites overhead. They passed charred trees growing from stone, each one bearing fruit shaped like little hearts. When Donald touched one, it burst in his hand and whispered in a child's voice, "Do not trust the mouse." Donald dropped it. Mickey turned. What was that? Nothing, Donald said quickly. The hose in Mickey's hands twitched toward Donald. Goofy tried to laugh. Funny place, huh? No one answered. Deeper in the grotto, they found Pete's first altar. It was built from bones and gold, with a round black mirror at its center. Pluto's collar hung from a hook above it. The name tag glinted in the firelight. Donald rushed forward. Pluto's collar. Mickey caught it before Donald could touch it. His gloved fingers closed around the tag. For the first time since the park, his face changed. Not sadness, possession. The mirror filled with smoke. Emperor Pete appeared inside it, huge and crowned, his black armor gleaming, his grin broad and cruel. "Well, well," Pete said, "the mouse made it this far." Goofy stepped back. "Pete." Donald raised his fists. "Where, Pluto?" Pete laughed. "The dog safe, for now. Dogs are useful. They know their masters." Mickey leaned closer to the mirror. Pete's grin faded slightly. "You feel it, don't you?" Pete said. "The kingdom, the costumes, the hunger. I thought I was calling you here to break you, but maybe you were broken before you arrived." Donald looked at Mickey. The hose in Mickey's hand began to drip. Not water, something darker. Pete's voice lowered. "Come to the castle, little mouse. Bring your friends. Bring the dog's collar. Bring that smile of yours. I want to see which one of us is really wearing the crown." The mirror cracked. A roar shook the grotto. From the lava rose a thing made of flame and melted stone. It had Pete's emblem carved into its chest and a mouth full of burning teeth. Its arms slammed down on the ledge, spraying sparks. Donald screamed. Goofy grabbed him and pulled him back. Mickey stepped forward. The firefighter hose came alive. Water blasted out with impossible force, striking the creature's face. Steam filled the cavern. The monster shrieked, its fire dimming, stone skin cracking. Mickey laughed as he drove it backward into the lava. The water did not stop. It tore chunks from the creature. It punched holes through molten flesh. The smell of wet ash and cooked stone filled the air. The creature tried to crawl away. Mickey followed. "Mickey," Goofy called, "you got him." Mickey kept spraying. The monster's scream became smaller, higher, almost human. Donald covered his ears. "Mickey, stop." But Mickey did not stop until the creature was nothing but a twitching black mound, hissing in the lava. Then he turned. Water steamed from the hose. His face was speckled with ash. His smile was calm. "We should keep moving," he said. Donald and Goofy followed because there was nowhere else to go. The grotto opened into a blasted hillside where the sky had gone purple. Far above, a mountain rose with jagged peaks like broken teeth. The path up was narrow, carved into cliffs that dropped into clouds. Wind moaned through the cracks in the stone. At the base of the mountain stood a little shop. Its door was painted red. Its windows glowed warmly. A sign swung above it, though there was no wind down here. Inside, shelves were lined with hearts, coins, lamps, and costumes folded with impossible neatness. The shopkeeper stood behind the counter. He was small, round, and cheerful looking, with button eyes and a fixed grin. He rubbed his hands together when they entered. "Welcome, travelers. Need supplies." Donald nearly sobbed with relief. Finally, someone normal. The shopkeeper's grin widened. Goofy looked around. "Say, you got anything for a long climb?" The shopkeeper placed a mountain climber costume on the counter. Helmet, gloves, boots, a grappling hook. "For the mouse," he said. Donald narrowed his eyes. "Why only him?" "Because he is the one the land obeys." Mickey stepped forward. The shopkeeper's smile trembled. For the first time, someone in that world looked afraid of Mickey. Mickey placed Pluto's collar on the counter. "Tell me what you know." The shopkeeper stared at the collar. "Pete keeps the dog in the castle tower, but he is not using him as bait." "Not exactly." Donald's voice shook. "What does that mean?" The shopkeeper leaned closer. "Every kingdom needs a heart. Pete's old heart died years ago, dried up in his chest. He has ruled with machinery, fear, and borrowed magic ever since. But Pluto is loyal, purely loyal. Pete wants that loyalty chained to the throne." Goofy frowned. "That's awful." The shopkeeper did not look away from Mickey. But Pete miscalculated. He thought the dog's loyalty belonged to Mickey Mouse. He did not know loyalty can become a doorway. He did not know the thing inside Mickey would follow it here. Donald whispered, "The thing inside Mickey." The shopkeeper reached under the counter. Mickey moved faster. His gloved hand shot out and seized the shopkeeper by the throat. Donald shouted, "Mickey!" The shopkeeper gagged. His button eyes bulged. Mickey's voice was gentle. "What thing?" The shopkeeper's mouth opened. A black tongue slid between his teeth. "The grin," he rasped. "The smile behind the smile. The hunger that lives in every mask." Mickey tilted his head. The shopkeeper's face began to split at the corners of his mouth. "Pete wears a crown," the shopkeeper gasped. "You wear a face." Mickey squeezed. The shopkeeper's head burst like a rotten pumpkin. Donald screamed and stumbled back into a shelf. Hearts fell around him, beating wetly on the floor. Goofy stood frozen, mouth open, eyes wide with horror. Mickey wiped his glove on the counter. Then he picked up the mountain climber costume. "We'll need this," he said. Donald could barely speak. "You killed him. He was going to hurt us." "You don't know that." Mickey looked at him. Donald did not finish. The mountain climber costume fit Mickey perfectly. The hook glinted like a claw. When he fired it into the rock outside, the point sank deep with a sound like teeth biting bone. They climbed. The mountain was worse than the forest and worse than the fire. At least those places had enemies one could see. The mountain had distance. It had wind. It had places where the path crumbled behind them and stones fell without sound into white emptiness. Mickey climbed ahead, hook flashing, boots striking stone. Goofy struggled behind him, long limbs shaking. Donald came last, muttering angrily to hide his fear. Hours seemed to pass, though the sky did not change. Then they heard Pluto. A bark carried over the cliffs. Mickey froze. The bark came again. Goofy looked up. Pluto. Donald grabbed Mickey's sleeve. "Wait, it could be another trick." Mickey shoved him away. He fired the hook and launched himself toward a higher ledge. Donald cursed and climbed after him. Goofy followed, panting. The ledge opened into a cave carved into the mountain. Inside, frost covered the walls. Strange for a mountain above a fire grotto. The cold bit deep, their breath fogged in front of them. Pluto stood at the far end of the cave. His back was turned. His collar was missing. "Pluto," Mickey whispered. The dog turned. Donald made a small, broken sound. It was Pluto, but wrong. His yellow fur was matted and dark. His ears dragged on the ground like wet cloth. His eyes reflected no light. Around his neck was a ring of black metal, bolted through the skin. Chains trailed from it into the cave wall. He wagged his tail once. The sound of it, scraping stone, made Donald shiver. Mickey stepped forward, face slack with something that might have been love. Pluto whined. Goofy said softly, "Easy, boy, we're here." Then Pluto's mouth opened. Not to bark, to speak. "Mickey." The voice was Pete's. The cave shook with laughter. Pluto convulsed. His body jerked sideways. The cave wall cracked open behind him, revealing machinery embedded in the mountain. Gears turning inside meat, chains running through pulleys made of bone. Pete's magic had not merely captured Pluto. It had threaded him into the kingdom. Mickey's hand tightened on the hook. Pete's voice came from Pluto's mouth again. "You should see your face, Mouse." Mickey trembled. Donald reached for him. "Mickey, it's Pete. Don't listen." Pluto's eyes rolled toward Donald. Pete laughed through him. "Still pretending he is your friend. Ask him about the ball. Ask him about the cliff. Ask him how long he heard my voice before he threw it." Goofy backed away. "Mickey." Mickey's lips parted. For a moment, he looked small and terrified. Then the smile returned, slow as sunrise over a grave. "I heard him for weeks," Mickey said. Donald shook his head. "No." He promised a place where everyone had to keep smiling. Goofy's voice cracked. "Why would you want that?" Mickey turned to him. "Because smiles don't leave." The words fell cold between them. Pluto whined again, his real voice breaking through Pete's magic. Mickey turned back to him. The machine in the wall began pulling the chains tight. Pluto yelped as the metal collar dragged him backward. Mickey fired the grappling hook. It struck the collar. For one hopeful second, Donald thought he meant to pull Pluto free. Then Mickey pulled the other way. The collar tore loose. Pluto collapsed with a strangled cry. Black blood streamed from the wounds in his neck, smoking where it touched the ice. The machinery screamed. Gears snapped. Chains whipped through the cave like angry snakes. Donald lunged toward Pluto. A chain caught him across the chest and hurled him into the wall. Goofy grabbed Donald before another chain could strike. Donald. Mickey knelt beside Pluto. The dog trembled, eyes clearing. His tail thumped once. Mickey touched his head. "Good boy," he whispered. Pluto licked Mickey's glove. For a breath, the cave was almost warm. Then Pluto looked past Mickey at Donald and Goofy, and his ears flattened. He began to growl. Not at Pete, at Mickey. Mickey's expression emptied. Pluto's growl deepened. He crawled backward, injured and shaking, but his eyes fixed on Mickey with recognition. Animals know. Even when people lie to themselves, animals know the shape of a monster. Mickey stood. "Pluto," Goofy said, voice trembling. "Come here, boy." Pluto tried. Mickey's hook flashed. It struck the stone inches from Pluto's paw. The dog froze. Donald struggled to his feet, clutching his chest. "Leave him alone." Mickey did not look at him. "He's mine." "No," Donald said, "he is." The cave went silent. Mickey turned. Donald had never been brave in the neat, storybook way. He shouted when frightened. He complained when tired. He shook when danger came close. But there are moments when fear becomes something harder. Donald stepped between Mickey and Pluto. Goofy stood beside him. Mickey looked at them both. The smile remained, but the eyes behind it were gone. "Mickey," Goofy said softly, "please, take off the costume." Mickey looked down at the mountain climber suit. Then he laughed. The sound echoed through the cave, bouncing from ice to stone, until it sounded like 100 Mickeys laughing from hidden places. "You think it's the costume." Donald raised his fists, though his whole body shook. Mickey lifted the hook. Pluto barked. The cave ceiling cracked. A great shape burst through the ice above them. A mountain beast with horns of frozen rock and eyes like red lanterns. Pete's magic crawled over its body in black veins. It roared, and the force of it knocked Donald and Goofy to the ground. Mickey turned toward it slowly. The beast lunged. Mickey fired the hook into its throat and pulled himself upward. He landed on its chest, boots digging into ice. The beast clawed at him, but Mickey moved too fast, crawling, swinging, cutting. The hook tore through frozen flesh. Chunks of ice and dark muscle rained down. Donald watched in horror as Mickey climbed the living monster like a tree, laughing softly, tearing pieces away, until the beast staggered. It slammed into the wall. Mickey drove the hook into one glowing eye. The beast screamed. Mickey pulled. The eye came free in a string of red light. Goofy turned away, gagging. Donald dragged Pluto toward the cave mouth. "Mickey," he shouted, "we can go. We can still go." Mickey stood on the dying beast's head, holding the red eye in one hand. He looked almost regal. "Pete is waiting," he said. The final road led from the mountain to Emperor Pete's castle. No one spoke. Pluto limped beside Donald, refusing to go near Mickey. Goofy supported Donald, who breathed shallowly from the blow to his ribs. Mickey walked ahead, changing costumes as the land demanded. Magician, firefighter, mountain climber. Each time he changed, something of the costume remained. Blue sparks under his skin, the smell of smoke in his breath, the twitch of a hook in his fingers. The castle rose from a plain of gray grass. It was enormous, black stone and iron towers, banners hanging limp from walls. Pete's emblem was carved above the gate, but someone had scratched Mickey's face over it in rough white lines. The round ears, the eyes, the smile. Donald stared. Who did that? The gate opened before Mickey touched it. Inside, the halls were lined with mirrors. Not normal mirrors. Each one showed a different Mickey. Mickey laughing in the park. Mickey throwing the ball. Mickey standing over the shopkeeper. Mickey holding Pluto's collar. Mickey sitting on a throne made of gloves. Donald kept his eyes down. Goofy whispered, "I don't think Pete made all these." At the end of the mirror hall stood the old wizard. His blue robe was torn. His beard was stained black. He leaned on a staff made from twisted roots. "You should not have come this far," he said. Donald snapped, "You helped us." "I tried to save what could be saved." Mickey stepped forward. The wizard's blind eyes burned. "There is still time," said the wizard. "Remove the smile. Let the mask break. Pain is not the enemy, Mickey. Loneliness is not the enemy. The enemy is the thing that tells you to keep smiling while everything inside you dies." Mickey stared at him. For a second, the castle groaned around them. Then Mickey whispered, "I don't want to be alone." Goofy took a small step toward him. "You're not alone." Pluto whined. Donald swallowed his anger. "You idiot. We came after you, didn't we?" Mickey's mouth trembled. The smile almost broke. Almost. Then Pete's applause thundered from above. "Well, ain't that touching?" Emperor Pete descended the grand staircase in black armor, crown heavy on his head. He was larger than Mickey remembered, larger than any normal Pete, his body swollen by stolen magic. His cape dragged behind him like a spill of shadow. His tusks gleamed. His eyes were small and mean, but beneath the meanness was fear. Real fear. He was afraid of Mickey. "You brought them all," Pete said. "The duck, the fool, the dog. Perfect. A kingdom needs witnesses." Mickey looked up at him. Pete grinned. "You thought this was a rescue story, but I know what you are now. You are no hero. You are a door. And if I carve you open, I can let the grin out and make it kneel." The castle doors slammed shut. Armor moved along the walls. Empty suits stepping down from their stands, holding axes and spears. Their helmets turned toward Donald, Goofy, and Pluto. Donald raised his fists. Goofy lifted a broken spear from the floor. Pluto growled through pain. Mickey did not move. Pete spread his arms. "Come on, Mouse. Let's see who gets to be the villain." The fight began in chaos. The empty armor charged. Donald ducked under an axe and slammed his shoulder into a suit, sending it clattering apart. Goofy swung the spear wildly, knocking helmets across the hall. Pluto darted low and bit at metal ankles, dragging one guard down despite his wounds. Pete came for Mickey. His first blow cracked the floor. Mickey leapt backward, magician's robe swirling around him. Blue bolts struck Pete's armor and burst into sparks. Pete laughed and swung again, catching Mickey across the room. Mickey hit a mirror. It shattered around him. In each falling shard, Donald saw a different smile. Mickey rose. Blood black as ink trickled from his mouth. Pete's grin widened. There it is. Mickey changed. Not costumes, not clothing. His body, his white gloves lengthened at the fingers. His ears sharpened at the edges. His smile stretched wider than flesh should allow. The corners of his mouth split with a wet sound, not bleeding red, but leaking dark cartoon ink that steamed on the stone. Goofy froze. Mickey. Mickey laughed. The sound made the armor stop. Even Pete stepped back. The old wizard raised his staff. Do not let it out. Mickey turned to him. Too late, Mickey said, though the voice was not his alone. Pete roared and charged. Mickey met him halfway. The impact blew out every candle in the hall. In the dark, Donald heard things breaking. Armor, stone, bone. Pete cursed. Mickey giggled. The sounds moved too quickly to follow. Blue magic flashed. Water blasted. The hooks scraped along walls. Pete's crown spun across the floor and stopped at Donald's feet. Then the lights returned. Pete lay on his back, armor torn open, chest heaving. Mickey stood over him, one foot planted on the broken breastplate. The hook was buried in Pete's shoulder. The firefighter hose coiled around Pete's throat. The magician's wand floated beside Mickey's head, dripping blue sparks. Pete coughed. You think killing me makes you king? Mickey leaned down. No, he whispered. Smiling does. The hose tightened. Pete's face darkened. He clawed at the coil. His boots scraped the floor. Donald turned away, but he could not block out the sound. When it ended, Emperor Pete was still. The castle exhaled. The banners changed. Pete's emblem faded. Mickey's face appeared in its place. Round ears, black eyes, endless smile. The old wizard knelt. Donald stared at Mickey in horror. What did you do? Mickey turned. The monstrous shape softened. The split mouth sealed. The gloves shortened. The eyes became Mickey's eyes again, or close enough to fool someone who wanted badly to be fooled. I saved Pluto, Mickey said. Pluto backed away, growling. Goofy's voice was barely a whisper. Mickey, we have to leave. Mickey looked around the castle hall. Mirrors reformed on the walls. In them, he saw the park, the trees, the ball. He saw a world where no one would leave because he would not allow the story to end. Leave, he said. Donald grabbed Pluto's collarless neck gently and pulled him closer. Yes, home. Mickey smiled. But this is home now. The castle doors opened behind him, not onto the gray plain, but onto the bright park from the beginning. Blue sky, green grass, white clouds, a perfect afternoon. Donald stared through the doorway. It was not a way out. It was a copy. In the copied park, another Donald stood near the grass, tapping his foot. Another Goofy leaned against a tree. Another Pluto crouched, ready for the ball. And another Mickey held it. Donald understood. How many times? He whispered. The old wizard answered, voice hollow. As many as it takes for the smile to win. Goofy began to cry. Not loudly, just a soft, helpless sound. Mickey looked annoyed by it. "Don't do that," he said. Goofy wiped his face with a trembling hand. "I'm sorry. I said don't." The walls pulsed. Goofy's mouth snapped shut, not by choice. His lips pressed together, forced into a smile. His eyes widened with panic. Donald shouted and grabbed him, but Goofy's face kept stretching, pulled by invisible fingers into an awful, cheerful grin. Mickey watched, breathing hard. The old wizard lifted his staff and struck the floor. Light exploded through the hall. For a moment, the spell broke. Goofy gasped and fell. Donald dragged him back. Pluto barked furiously. The wizard stood between them and Mickey. "Run," he said. Donald did not hesitate. He grabbed Goofy. Goofy grabbed Pluto. Together, they fled through the only door that did not lead to the false park, a narrow passage behind the throne. Mickey's voice followed them. "Donald." The passage twisted downward through the castle. Behind them came the sound of Mickey walking. Not running, walking. His shoes tapped lightly on stone. Tap, tap, tap. Donald shoved Goofy onward. Pluto limped between them. The passage walls were painted with scenes from the game that should have been. Mickey in the treetops, Mickey in the forest, Mickey in the fire grotto, Mickey climbing the mountain, Mickey rescuing Pluto. But as they passed, the paintings changed. Mickey crushing the forest creatures and smiling. Mickey choking the shopkeeper. Mickey tearing the mountain beast apart. Mickey standing over Pete. Mickey looking out of the painting at Donald. Tap, tap, tap. They burst into a chamber full of old cartridges. Thousands of them. Gray plastic stacked from floor to ceiling. Each labeled the magical quest starring Mickey Mouse. Some were clean. Some were cracked. Some leaked black ink from their seams. At the center of the room stood a Super Nintendo connected to a small television. The screen glowed with the park. The old wizard appeared from a side door, breathing raggedly. "This is the route," he said. "The loop lives here." Donald stared. "How do we stop it?" The wizard handed him the ball. Donald recoiled. "Where did you get that?" "It was never in the park. It was always here." The ball was warm. It pulsed like a heart. The wizard pointed to the television. "Throw it back." Goofy shook his head. "Back where?" "Through the screen. Break the first lie." Mickey entered the chamber. He looked ordinary again. That made it worse. "Donald," he said, sounding hurt. "Why are you running from me?" Donald held the ball. Mickey's eyes dropped to it. The room went cold. "Give me that." Donald stepped back. "Mickey," Goofy pleaded, "please stop." Mickey's face twitched. "I just want things the way they were." Donald's anger broke open. "No, you don't. You want us trapped. You want Pluto scared. You want Goofy smiling while he cries. That ain't friendship." Mickey stared. Pluto barked once, weak but clear. Mickey flinched as if struck. Behind him, the darkness rose. The grin unfolded from his shadow, vast and thin, a towering Mickey-shaped thing with empty eyes and a mouth full of white, square teeth. It bent over Mickey like a puppeteer. The old wizard screamed a spell. The grin turned. Mickey whispered, "No." For the first time, he sounded afraid. The grin's hands settled on his shoulders. Donald saw then that Mickey had been evil, yes, but also used. He had opened the door, welcomed the whisper, fed it with jealousy and fear and loneliness. But now the thing had grown larger than him. It did not need Pete. It did not need the castle. It needed the smile. The grin pushed its fingers into Mickey's cheeks and lifted. Mickey screamed. The sound tore through the chamber. Donald hurled the ball at the television. It struck the screen. Glass exploded inward. The park on the screen twisted. Blue sky peeled away. Green grass blackened. The copped Donald, Goofy, Pluto, and Mickey all turned toward the broken glass. The room filled with wind. Cartridges flew from the shelves, smashing against walls, bursting open, spilling black ink. The Super Nintendo sparked and smoked. The grin shrieked, clutching Mickey tighter. The old wizard raised both hands. "Now," he cried, "take the dog and go." A doorway opened in the broken television. Beyond it was the real park. Not perfect, not painted. Evening had fallen. The grass was dark. The sky was bruised with sunset. Real wind moved through real trees. Donald grabbed Pluto. Goofy grabbed Donald. They ran. Behind them, Mickey screamed their names. Donald looked back once. Mickey stood in the storm of cartridges, fighting the grin. His face flickered between terror and fury, and that awful smile. The old wizard stood before him, staff blazing, robe whipping in the wind. For 1 second, Mickey's eyes met Donald's. They were Mickey's eyes, the real ones. "Donald," he whispered. Donald stopped. Goofy shouted, "Come on." Mickey reached toward them. The grin reached through him. Donald's heart broke. Then Pluto barked. Not in fear, in farewell. Donald turned and jumped through the television. The world snapped shut. They landed in the park at dusk. Donald rolled across the grass. Goofy crashed beside him. Pluto tumbled into them both, whining. For several seconds, none of them moved. Then Donald sat up. The trees were just trees. The cliff was gone. The ball lay nowhere. Goofy touched his own face, making sure his smile was his to move. Pluto crawled into Donald's lap and shook. Donald held him. They waited for Mickey. The park darkened. Crickets began to sing. No one came. Days passed. Then weeks. The world accepted a story because the world likes simple endings. Mickey Mouse had vanished while looking for Pluto. Donald Duck and Goofy had returned shaken and injured, telling a tale no one believed. Pluto would not go near televisions. He growled at mirrors. He whimpered whenever someone laughed too brightly. Donald changed. He stopped shouting as much. He stopped playing catch. Sometimes he stood at the edge of the park and stared at the place where the cliff had been, fists clenched, eyes wet. Goofy tried to stay cheerful, but his laugh was quieter. He never leaned against that tree again. And Mickey, there were rumors. A child in another town found an old Super Nintendo cartridge at a yard sale. The label was faded, but the round ears were still visible. When he plugged it in, the title screen appeared with no music. Mickey stood under the words "The Magical Quest," starring Mickey Mouse, waving at the player. But his glove was stained black. The child pressed start. His mother found him, an hour later sitting cross-legged before the screen, smiling so hard his lips bled. The cartridge was gone. In another house, late at night, a television turned on by itself. A bright park filled the screen. Mickey stood in the center, holding a ball, looking straight into the dark room. "Ready, pal?" he asked. No one was there to answer. The screen went black. Then came the tapping. Tap, tap, tap. Donald heard it too, years later, during a storm. He was alone in his house, Pluto sleeping uneasily by the fire. Rain lashed the windows. Thunder rolled over the roof. Donald had locked every door and covered every mirror. Still, at midnight, the television clicked on. Static filled the room. Pluto woke with a snarl. Donald stood slowly. The static cleared. Mickey Mouse stood on the screen. Not monstrous, not bleeding, not grinning too wide. Just Mickey, his old friend. He looked tired. "Hiya, Donald," Mickey said. Donald could not breathe. Pluto growled, but there was uncertainty in it. Mickey looked around as if he could see the room. "I found a way back." Donald whispered, "No." Mickey's eyes softened. "I'm scared." Donald's hands trembled. On the screen, Mickey pressed one gloved hand against the glass. Behind him, far in the darkness, something smiled. Mickey whispered, "Please let me in." Donald stepped backward. Pluto barked. The thing behind Mickey opened its mouth. Mickey began to smile. Donald grabbed the lamp beside him and hurled it at the television. The screen shattered. Sparks burst. Smoke filled the room. Pluto barked and barked until his voice broke. In the broken black glass, Donald saw his own reflection. For 1 second, his reflection smiled without him. After that, Donald destroyed every screen in the house. But screens are everywhere now. In pockets, in cars, in bedrooms, in the palms of children who laugh at bright colors and old games they do not understand. Somewhere, buried in code or cartridge plastic or memory, the magical land waits. The treetops still drip with sap. The dark forest still whispers in borrowed voices. The fire grotto still burns away the truth. The mountain still holds frozen screams. Emperor Pete's castle still stands, though Pete no longer sits on the throne. The throne is smaller now, rounder, built for someone with white gloves And sometimes, when a player begins the game, Mickey does not move right away. He stands at the edge of the screen as if listening. Then he turns toward you. His smile appears one piece at a time. And if you are unlucky, if your room is dark enough, if you are lonely enough, if you have ever forced yourself to smile when something inside you was breaking, you may hear him speak, not from the speakers, from behind you. Gosh, he says, you found me. And that is when the game begins again. Thank you for listening to this dark retelling of the magical quest starring Mickey Mouse. Please like the video if you enjoyed the nightmare. Subscribe for more horror stories. And tell me in the comments which cheerful childhood classic should be dragged into the dark next. But before you go, check your screen. If you see Mickey waving, do not wave back. If you hear Pluto barking from somewhere far away, do not follow. And if a ball rolls out from under your bed, red and clean and warm to the touch, leave it there. Because somewhere beyond the cliff, in a kingdom of costumes and smiling masks, Mickey Mouse is waiting for someone else to play catch. Good night.
Whispers of a love so true, painting dreams of me and you. And I'll hold you close in this moment so divine. Whispers of the night will forever intertwine.